Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. The longevity industry is forecasted to be anywhere between 7 and 10 trillion US dollars by the time 2030 comes around. And everybody would like to have a piece of the pie. And it's a great pleasure now to introduce up on stage Kerry Brouillet from, she's a wellness consultant from Living Life with Lemons. Stewart Miller, who is a consultant on fitness and with hospitality and also LiveWire Productions. Shakil Oli, a former Olympian and also now the CEO for Urban New. And I'd like to welcome back Harjit back on the stage. Now, when it comes to longevity, it's a big word. And the wellness industry or wellness in hotels, initially we had the pools, and then the spas were introduced, the massages in terms of the feel good, and now we're all talking about longevity. And we're breaking down longevity into the 4 founding pillars when it starts really with the movement and fitness and bodybuilding, to sleep, to nutrition, and then also wellness. And that's what we're here to discuss this afternoon. Place yourself into your hotel gym. Who believes they have the most amazing hotel gym here in Dubai or here in the Middle East? All right, I've got 2 hands up here in the back. Which property are you with? Okay, amazing. So we all have to go and try that one out. But how often have you trained in a hotel gym? Amazing. And how often were you happy with the training in your hotel gym? Did you have all the equipment that you needed? No hands up. And with that, it's just the, Stewart, I would like to know from your side, and how you have been working. I mean, you have been opening hotel gyms, here in the Middle East. You're consulting on hotel gyms. Where do you see the biggest opportunities are to get that foundation of longevity right without having to spend too much money?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I think the question, Judith, is quite relevant at this time because we've heard over the last few days, and I'm sure Ajit mentioned it earlier as well, the size of the wellness market. We as a group, a hospitality group, we want to have those wellness travelers in our hotel. And this is not news. We've all been in this space for some time, and the hoteliers understand that, so they're trying to figure out what they can do in the hotel space that they currently have, how to improve it, or they look at some of the new builds. And from my experience over the last 25 years in the fitness space, the fear factor kicks in quite a bit early on when the hotels look at the amount of square meterage that's required in order to build something that's sustainable and that the customers will report positively on. Because generally, when we stay or when we do research and we stay in hotels around the world, Dubai is a little bit more spoiled, and the Middle East is a little bit more spoiled than most markets, but generally the gyms are placed in the basement, without windows, relatively small, and a lot of big equipment. And the industry shifted. The industry shifted to more functional work. The industry shifted to more body weight work. And the industry shifted to a slightly different type of workout besides just a treadmill is not good enough anymore. And the hotels that we work with understand that, and the hotels that we work with are doing everything they can to put their best foot forward. But we all know that budgets play a big part of it as well. And from where we're sitting, we see that the hotel industry is probably in the best position possible to really disrupt the fitness space because they have some of the most incredible properties in great locations. And they look at the fitness studio or the gym within their location as a cost center. And we try to encourage our clients and the industry to look at it as a profit opportunity. By just changing 1 or 2 metrics and looking at the same business just with a slightly different lens, the business goes from costing, or the space goes from costing a couple of $100,000 a year to making a profit. And there are only 2 things that they really need to do that, and it's often as we know, not about always spending money, but really focusing on what the customers want. So it's number one, understanding your customers, which you know very well. You're selling sleep. They're coming to your location because they trust you, that you understand that space. So you have details of who they are. Before they arrive, it's understanding what they like so that you can also accommodate them in your space. But you have a set demographic, so it's offering the right products to that demographic. The second part of it is to encourage the outside community to come and also work out in your space. Now, it's not available to every hotel. They don't have that ability. But you can limit with technology now how many outside visitors come in. You're quite happy for an outside visitor to come and take a chair in the lobby, in the cafe, or in a restaurant, and pay you. And that becomes a profit center. But if there's an empty bike or a treadmill or a workout bench, why wouldn't you accept him to pay you for that as well? And I think that geographically, where you're placed, there's a high density populated communities which would also like to work out in some of your fabulous gyms and some of your locations. Just having the latest equipment and having a space is enough for them to actually come into the space.
And you made a very important comment that a lot of times the gym is seen as an amenity and as a cost center. And having worked with brands, and often you have brand standards that stipulate that if you have 100 keys, you have to have a 60 square meter gym. And then if you have a spa, then it's usually 6 to 8 treatment rooms, which is then defined, and then the architects design around it. So, Jackal, from your side, when you work with investors and brands together, but then also with your hat on being, a former Olympian, how do you approach that?
Good afternoon, Judith, and thank you for the invitation. Well, I think the key is always context. Is how can we best be of service to people in this project and the community? I think what Stewart speaks about in saying that we should have the facilities welcome people from the outside, I think is a very important factor to increase the utility of the space and the social impact that people can experience there, because gyms are a social place. They're a place where other people, maybe not necessarily want to meet others, but they want to be in a specific energy, in a specific community. And I think that is really important, and it creates the economies of scale for other consumables in the wellness area as well. So the way we look at approaching projects is usually to try and have a mixed-use impact in the project. We also know that gyms get a higher use rate if there's residents or office users in that vicinity, and it allows for a higher utility. So in one of the projects that we've worked on, we've included 2 residential towers, we've included a hotel, we've included a large residential precinct, and then we've literally changed the gym size where the architect and the guidelines were offering, a 350 square meter gym, and we blew it up to 1,000 square meter gym. And we still don't think that's massive. It's a huge increase, but you can still do gyms larger than that and make a very viable investment and environment. So I really do believe that understanding the context of service from a wider community level is very important. And then understanding that gyms isn't a place to exercise only. There's a lot of different type of amenities like recovery in the gym that is really important, that is actually attracting so many more users and increasing their dwell time.
Thank you. And just like when we're looking at then also, at the whole ecosystem of a hotel, when a hotel concept, let's say, is conceived, designed, investment is being made, unless from the very top there is a longevity enthusiast, I haven't seen that trickle down yet, because then often what happens then, somebody then builds the structure of the hotel, then there is the space for the gym, then procurement has a list of pre-approved vendors from where they then order the technology from, or then the equipment in the gym. The vendors very often, they sell the cardio equipment because that has the highest margin, right? And then the head of gym and spa, they don't join until 3 months prior, because that's where the pre-opening budget says. And that's what you see, across like the mainstream hotel, let's say like 3, 4, 5 star, and also luxury hotels. Then there's longevity, and everybody wants to have a piece of that pie, and everybody wants to talk to the longevity guest. And now we have the cryo chambers, and then we have vampire facials, and we have blood transfusions, and we have IV drips. And that's in where, you know, hotels get very creative, and that's in where then from an owner side, money is spent, but the ROI is not necessarily seen. Yet then from a commercial side, the teams, they say, well, but we need to have a message on longevity in order to compete in the market. You know, Hartwig, from your side, I'm sure you've seen this many times and the push and pull. What would you recommend to the audience in terms of where to start before you start spending the big dollars on what you need to have in place? You touched on the sleep earlier, that there's a lot of things that can be done. And then in terms of just to have that whole customer journey ready.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, we see it firsthand based on what our clients are seeking from a hotel, but we also see it from a commercial point where people are spending the most money. And it's not on the IV drips, it's not on any of the invasive stuff. Actually, where most of the spend happens is at the start of the client journey when it comes to testing. So a lot of that type of stuff is where the revenue's at. And that then goes on to feed into the gym, goes on to feed into all of these invasive procedures, and that's where you get that recurrent monthly revenue through membership programs. So my advice would be and people are so data conscious right now. They will measure the outcome of whatever they are doing, be that the stay at the hotel for the night. They're going to measure it based on what their Whoop is saying. Be that the gym that they're going to. They're going to measure it based on whether it aligns with the workout programs that they've got, how they're feeling. So I would focus predominantly on the data and how you can make this accessible to people that are coming to stay at your properties, because that's what people are ultimately seeking. Yeah.
And then you have to recover then after having analyzed all the data in order then to relax. But then let's say then we've been to the spa, to the wellness, and we maybe had a good night's sleep and we've done all our exercise, and then we go into the restaurants. Kerry, from your side, you know, as a nutrition consultant, hotels and longevity, do they actually go together when we just talk about the food? You know, we go to relax, we go to get pampered, and then we feel good after the spa. But then yet in hotels, very often, we also like to go there and to indulge.
Right, so this is where we need to create the link a little bit more. So you've gone to the spa, you've recovered, you've done these numerous things that have really, really been beneficial for you, and then you go to the restaurant and you see your favorite comfort food on the restaurant menu. But there are things that we can do from an F&B standpoint that can elevate those dishes in a nutritional way and take away the things that may be causing the inflammation, may be causing the things that make you feel a certain way when you go home and leave that facility. Because if you're left with what you eat as the last thing that you're experiencing, the breakfast, for example, you know, how many avocado toasts have we seen on a menu? And, you know, often now as well, people are not typically going with the breakfast typical items because we are following an intermittent fasting schedules. So we're often breaking our fasts at 12, 1, 2 in the afternoon. So what have we got on that menu that really feeds that client in a nourishing way? We need to look at the fats, carbohydrates, the macro breakdowns, not only the calorie breakdowns. We need to look at the functional ingredients that we're injecting into menus. We need to look at, you know, what can boost mood, boost focus, boost recovery, and overall stamina as well. So they're leaving this wellness facility, hotel, restaurant with a really good overall experience.
My daughter, she was just covering now at school the nutrition pyramid, you know, in terms of on where things are elevated. And a lot of times when we go for meals in restaurants, the kids automatically are given the kids menu. And then what you have on the kids menu is the pizza, it's the pasta, it's the french fries, it's the chicken nuggets, the hot dog, the burger. And then to top it all up, then there is then the complimentary ice cream, and then also then a juice box. And just looking at that, then also then as a parent, it's just highly frustrating. Yeah. And it would just be so nice. And then hotels, they say, oh, but this is what kids want. But if that's the choice that they're always given, then yes, then that's what children want. So now that we've talked about the basics of longevity, or the founding pillars of sleep nutrition, in terms of, like, if you were to build now a new hotel, or if it's a hotel, where would you say the quickest wins are, Stewart, when you work with them? Just like some top 3 wins in terms of having an impact and getting that addressing what the longevity customer is looking for, but also everybody, because ultimately longevity is not a luxury, it's a necessity for everybody, including all the hotel employees that work on hotel level, because very often that's something that we forget. We work long hours, often back-to-back shifts or split shifts, to top it up. But at the same time, we want to service the longevity customer.
So I think the first thing to consider is, if I'm building or I'm advising and working with a group around a new hotel, is to also show them that the wellness traveler spends 56% more than a normal traveler. And the wellness traveler is not someone that's gone on a yoga retreat, because GWI does a report, and the GWI report states that their tier 1 and their tier 2 sections within the report show that 78% of the travelers are tier 2. So 78% of the wellness traveler budget is in tier 2, and tier 2 is your general traveler. So that's us when we go on business, that's us when we go on a general holiday. We want to stay at a place that can accommodate us, from the food, from the actual fit out, and from the space itself. But more importantly, it's to focus on that message with your team, that if they want to hit the numbers, you'd rather have a wellness traveler staying in your location than a general traveler, because you're going to get 56% more spend. That's the first thing I'd concentrate on. The second thing I'd concentrate on is get the whole team involved, because just like you said, Judith, if the GM or the CEO of the group is into health and wellness, then there's an element of it that's at a relatively good level. If they're not into it, it doesn't happen. It just ticks the box. So it's about getting the entire team excited about the offering. And when you build a facility where you can invite the outside public, why can't your team also use it at certain times in the day and also have access to the facility? So that would probably be my real focus at the beginning.
And Jackal, from your side, when you speak with investors, and a lot of times, you get involved when it comes to master developments. Where would you start?
We definitely start with the story. What is the purpose of the project, and we do all our projects with a story behind it and an objective, and we accomplish that objective throughout the project in how we deliver. And one of the key things is we want everyone to want to experience the properties that we work on, whether they're master plan or individual property. We want everyone to want to experience it. So the story embeds itself into the design, it embeds itself into the marketing as well, because you could have a great property, but if you don't market it well, you don't tell the story well enough, people might just not know, and they might just love you when they stumble upon it. But we want to get the competitive drive, we want to get the numbers. So we want to ensure that the marketing is also done well, and that ecosystem, that ethos of storytelling is done very well. When it comes to the investment side, when the numbers are being crunched, we always make sure that we have a project that is going to do well enough for everyone not to want to cut on the amenities. And that's a key thing, because when you're looking at a project and it's not doing that well, that you've got to go and reduce the size of your amenities, something is already wrong from the outset. It's not the amenities that's the problem. It's something else. In today's world, we've got a massive solution to hospitality in bringing amenities to the table, which is branded residences. Branded residences allow you to bring a lot of cash early into the project and create a new revenue stream. So we've really targeted this sector in being able to bring critical mass into amenities in the precincts that we work on. So that's a massive factor for us.
Thank you. And Harjit, from your side, earlier in one of the presentations we heard that, we are heading that mental health, and then also that we're heading into an empathy crisis, that a lot of people are lonely, and loneliness is growing more, with remote working and with the whole digital communication that we have these days. I was saying to my husband the other day, I said, I'm so glad that I'm a kid from the 80s and 90s, because what's becoming a trend now is how I grew up.
Yep.
In terms of sitting at tables with strangers, then just to have the communications, or just going and meet other people then in gyms, etc. With your clients, why are they engaging with with yourself, and why do they want to go into that longevity journey?
Yeah, so we actually have 6 pillars at Longevity UK: nutrition, movement, sleep, stress, supplements, and community. So community is one of the pillars that we have for many reasons. First of all, due to the fact that we opened just before COVID, and so during COVID, post-COVID, we saw just how much the impact of that had on people's mental health, people's ability to socialize, loneliness. And it's actually one of the pillars that I think we work the hardest on, bringing people together wherever they are on their health journey. Quite often what we see is that those people that are new to a health journey don't usually have a support network around them that are necessarily into the same thing. So maybe once upon a time they weren't that interested in what they were eating or how much they were training. Now they're making those decisions, and they're all of a sudden very different to the people that they used to hang out with. So we provide them a space for people that are like-minded, and it's a really, really important part of what we do. Where I would say above the medical testing that we do, above the movement things, and obviously each pillar as well in itself has that community element. Stewart touched on it slightly with the gyms being a place where, it's not just a place to train, it's a place to go and hang out, it's a place to meet people that are like-minded. So yeah, it's a super important part.
Yeah.
And how much are people willing to spend to improve their longevity, like ballpark individuals from bit to?
Well, I would say so. We have a number of different membership options. At the lowest, you're paying 2,500, and you can go up to 150,000 for some of our treatments. Average spend per client on the first visit that come to us is 10,000 dirham. And then you have various membership options, which is also something I wanted to highlight as well, that although you have a physical property with traffic coming in and out in the forms of people, there are ways to have these people on membership models whereby they still need the services that your hotel provides, albeit not in a physical setting, and you can still make recurrent revenue from that. So we actually operate predominantly in the virtual model. So we actually don't have a physical space. We're partnered with physical spaces like specific gyms that offer us the right equipment to send our clients to. But there's a lot that you can do in terms of long-term revenue from that same client that is visiting you for 4 days. So yeah.
So Kerry, from your side, I mean, in the audience, you have a lot of business travelers. So we all travel a lot to the various hotels that we service. And if we want to stay on our, nutrition pillar, what's your recommendation to us on how can we actually continue without having to break the cycle, that we can just simply continue that journey?
Yeah, just look at the balance, guys. Everything in moderation. It has to be, but enjoy everything that you have presented to you, but really have a look at those ingredients. And if the hotel or the facility that's providing you that food is transparent with everything, don't be afraid to ask the questions. I recently worked with, I was tasked to reduce calories on a menu that was, we had a beef stroganoff, for example, at 2,200 calories. It took several attempts to get it down to 800 calories without compromising the quality of the flavor and the nostalgia that comes with it. Your guests still want that. People still want that when they travel. However, if we're reducing calories and really having a look at the overall balance of menus, I think that's going to go a long way with your guests as well, and creating that experience where, you know, they walk into your restaurant and you're giving them a mineral-rich welcome drink, for example. We live in the Middle East. We've got, you know, we're running around, we're constantly sweating. You know, that's going to go a long way. It's going to be remembered. Training your staff on the menu where they are offering alternatives, and also staff recognizing the repeat clients as well, the repeat guests. That's massive. You know, Judith, when you walk into a hotel and they know, you know, you love a favorite dessert, if you've visited this hotel 7 times a year, John Smith is there again, he orders the same thing from room service. It should be perhaps on a curated menu for him on arrival. Why not? You know, and integrate a movement session, integrate a recovery session, a recovery smoothie with that when he comes from the gym. It should be, I think, a wellness experience if, you know, that's what the clients are looking for.
Thank you. Ultimately, the guests, they would like to have a better experience than what they have at home. That's why they go travel. That's why they go and explore. Closing statement from the panelists, please. Harjit, we'll start with you.
Actually, I like what you say there, because that is one thing that we hear from our clients, that a lot of the times they don't want to go for nights out away because they get to the point in the day where they would actually go home and sleep in a bed or a room that they've got nailed down for their own sleep. They're eating foods that they know what's in there. They're going to go to their gym that they know where to train. So I would just say there's a huge demographic, and there's a lot of revenue sitting there to be made from a group of people that are seeking these things. And we see it in real time, whereby some of our clients that have been on your properties loyalty schemes because they travel there so much are actually now seeking alternatives in the forms of Airbnbs where they can control what they're eating. They can get it at a location that is close to a facility where they need to go and train. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that you're missing out on.
Jackal?
I think the biggest trend in longevity is coming not for the body but for the mind. And I think that's an interesting topic that eventually will become more spoken about, which is how people, you know, just because someone is successful or has a lot of money, you know, usually doesn't mean they're happy. And some of the most unwell people is not because they're unhealthy, it's because they're angry. And there is a study already that says that if an angry person or a person who's really sad, right, and has the wrong mentality is eating, you know, an unhealthy piece of food or a healthy piece of food, there'll be very little difference in how they're going to absorb it in comparison to someone who is actually happy or has wellness. So I think the definition of wellness is going to become more interesting. And, you know, if you talk about one thing I've learned being a top athlete is that I wasn't necessarily a healthier person just because I was a really top-end athlete. I was just pushing my body to the maximum and doing it with the least rest possible and so on. And that was just the life you choose. But you look like you're the fittest person and you look really well and you have a very stringent process. But we also end up discovering that we miss out on a lot of life, we sacrifice a lot. And Olympians are some of the people that face depression the most. There's a big issue in that. And I would say that for me was a big opening awareness moment in saying that, you know what, there's something deeper here. My journey ended up revealing a lot more to me in that after being an athlete, but I would say the real longevity is going to go for the mind and the soul. And we're right now really looking at the body in a big way, and that's fine, and that's great. But when we get to the mind and the soul component, that's, I think, when we're going to have the biggest effect on longevity.
Stewart?
I think the word wellness is going to still be defined. I think it's thrown around too much at the moment, quite general. But in the current state that it's in, it's the restaurant business. You could say in the restaurant business, hotels are quite happy to bring brands into their locations and partner with them on a revenue share model. They fit it out the way that they want. they stick to brand guidelines, they identify what restaurant brand resonates with their demographic or the offering that they wish to have, but they don't do it in the fitness and in the wellness space. And there are a number of fabulous brands out there that are looking for growth and that are looking for places to go. I would really encourage you to lean into that and think about what brands resonate with you and resonate with your demographic and your customers, and reach out to them and talk to them. Because just like Judith said, not everything has to be within your location. It could be around your location or it could be brought to your location. But wouldn't it be nice when a client comes to you for 2 nights, the revenue that he pays you or she pays you is not the only time you see revenue from them, because you can enjoy recurring revenue with other services that they might get wherever else they go to after your location.
Thank you. And Kerry?
And I think it's really important to note that longevity doesn't necessarily mean a long life. We need to really look into the quality of life, you know, and that ties into everything what we've said here, but also creating those nourishing special moments for guests, where they actually go away and think about, what did I have at that hotel that really helped me feel amazing? And the quality is a huge thing. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening, and thank you very much to the panelists for joining me on stage.
Thank you.